Good morning and welcome to Business Africa Live on BTA. I am Benjamin Afre, your host. Today we take a look at the Economic Partnership Agreement that has brought all these controversy, all this brouhaha in the country. There are those who are for us going on to sign. There are those who are saying, look, hold on, don't sign yet. Let's negotiate for a better deal. Even the Christian Council has gotten involved in it. We just want to take a look at what this is, what implication it has on us, whether we sign or we don't sign. We'll take a short break. When we come back, I'll introduce my guests for this morning to you, and then we'll take our discussions from there. Stay tuned in.
The tourism industry in Ghana is reported to be the fourth highest foreign exchange earner on our GDP list. We will find out what the impact, the identification, development and promotion of tourist sites in the local vicinities where they are located. We also want to talk to the various chiefs and opinion leaders in these communities to assess whether tourism is making a positive or negative impact on the lives of the local people. This is Tourism TV, fact-finding program that seeks to investigate the existing and potential tourist sites. Join me, Ralph Aite, this and every Friday on this wonderful expedition to find out what tourism is all about in Ghana.
Welcome back. So what is all this to do with the Economic Partnership Agreement with Ghana, the West African countries, and the EU? What is it all about? To do this discussion with me today, I have three guests, I'm sure with different opinions on all these EPA matters. I have with me to my extreme left, Mr. Asaki A. Sampson, who's the Executive Secretary, Importers and Export Association of Ghana. You're welcome. And it's good to have you on the show.
It's good to be here too as well.
And then you have Sylvester Bagoro, a Programs Officer with the Third World Network Africa. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And then we have Fred Avonyo, a business analyst and one of our regular guests on the show. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you on the show this morning. Now, so Sylvester, let's start with you. What is all this EU EPA agreement about? Why all this brouhaha?
The Economic Partnership Agreement is a free trade agreement between the EU and ECOWAS, of course, and then other African countries like ACP, what they call ACP, Africa, Caribbean, Pacific countries.
Yeah.
A free trade agreement in the sense that, so if you are bringing goods, let's say from Tema, if you take Ghana for instance, from Tema to Accra, you don't charge any duty on them. And so the goods from Europe will enter duty-free, quota-free, and we also have the same access to European market. And so what is on the table now, about 75% of the product from Europe will enter our countries, duty-free, quota-free. Then we also have access to EU market apart from sugar and some other products.
What percentage?
About 99%.
Almost 100.
Yes, market
Entry to
access.
the market.
Yes. Now, a lot of people are talking about the agreement in the sense that this is an agreement between unequal partners. So the EU is a much developed partner,
much bigger
much
partner.
developed partner. And then the ECOWAS is, we are developing countries. And so when you open up that way, you have a lot of goods coming from Europe into the ECOWAS sub-region, and that can actually derail any development agenda we might have. So if you are looking at the manufacturing sector, in terms of manufactured products, we don't export to Europe. So we export to the sub-region. But in terms of raw materials, we export to Europe. And so if as a continent, or as a region, or as a country,
block, yeah.
we want to continue to be exporting raw materials, go ahead and sign your EPA so you can continue to export your raw materials. That is them. But if you wanted to move out of that raw material commodity dependence and add value to products, create job for the teeming youth on the continent, then is the best thing is not to sign this agreement, and so that you have the space to be able to develop as a country. That's another dimension of it. If you look at what we have on the table, we in Dakar we met in January. We concluded what they call the regional agreement with the EU at a technical level. Level. What is on the table is that the most of the products that ECOWAS produce, we produce in ECOWAS. So whether pharmaceuticals, whether the fungicides, baby nappies, and all the things, what they call the light manufacturing sector that we produce as a region. They actually sacrificed those ones. So, in 2007, there was a deadlock.
Yeah.
There was a deadlock because the ECOWAS Commission said, look, we cannot sacrifice our light manufacturing sector, which is well acknowledged in terms of moving to heavy industrialization. If you want to move to heavy industrialization, you need to make sure that you learn the industrialization from the light manufacturing sector before you can move to heavy industrialization. And so there was a deadlock in 2007 because ECOWAS thought it's wise to say, look, we cannot open this up. The surprising thing is that in January, when the technical experts met in Dakar, they disagreed with the Commissioner of Trade. They also disagreed with the EU. The high-ranking officials, who are not technical experts, they came and brushed aside the technical experts and agreed with the EU. So they moved from 70 to 75%. They never agree with them. That's the market access aspect. There is another aspect that held the negotiation since 2007, what they call most favored nation clause, which means that what this big word, what does it mean? What all that means that the EU wants to have a competitive edge ahead of China, Brazil, and India on the continent. So they have what they call raw material initiative. They're interested in raw materials. Every country on the continent, they know the kind of mineral resource they are looking for, and so they want to have this agreement, what they call the most favored nation clause, so that they have a competitive edge ahead of the other countries, to the detriment of our development, in the sense that what it says is that any agreement that we enter into in the future with either Brazil or India, the EU, that offers better concession than what we're offering the EU now, then the EU automatically qualifies. What does that mean? So it means that if the countries know that we have this kind of clause with the EU, we can't have any concession with them. They cannot offer, because when they do, the EU will qualify. So that is one aspect of it. There is another aspect of the agreement that talks about export taxes. Export taxes in the sense that if you want to develop, you need to put an export tax, and so that it will encourage value addition, so that people will not just export the raw materials. So that's the essence of export tax. Now the EU is saying that we cannot introduce export taxes, in the sense that they want the raw materials cheaper within the European economy.
You mean on the raw materials? Raw
materials, because their logic is that the EU is an import economy and an export economy. They import a lot of raw materials and export a lot of finished products.
That's true.
And so the export tax that they are saying is prohibitive now, in the sense that so that we if we want our cocoa beans, our mineral resources, they will lift them up from and send to Europe. So then they add value and bring out the chocolate. And so that is the one of the things on the table. There's a worst form of the agreement, what they call rendezvous clause, that says we agree to negotiate within 6 months of concluding this on the table is the goods EPA.
Good, yeah,
When we're
yeah.
finished with this, we're moving to services. They want to control shipping, banking services, and all that. And so what they're saying that, look, we need to open up our procurement sector sector.
Processes, yeah.
What is wrong with this? I mean, the EU saying that let's open up procurement so that we can deal with corruption and all that. What is wrong with it? There's a number of things wrong with it. It's coming to tell us how we spend our budget. So in the procurement law, once we agree with the EU, it means that you cannot discriminate against a European multinational against a Ghanaian
company. So,
if
there is some project and you're looking for
for
people to come to bid, everybody, including the multinationals, can bid for it.
So
they can't discriminate against them.
You cannot. It will be illegal, and now you pay judgment. Debt. I think this country we are used to paying judgment.
So maybe they want to encourage us to do
so it's very it's a very bad. There's another aspect of what they call the investment. The rules about investment, national treatment. You cannot treat a European company different from what you treat
from the
Canadian
local
company. And when you do this, you just tie your hands in a situation where you'll be able you find it difficult to develop as a country. And that is why we think this agreement is not best. It's not the best for this country, it's not the best for the continent, and it's not the best for the whole ACP.
Even though it doesn't seem and doesn't look the best, it looks as if our government is ready to push on to sign this. Samson, what is your take on that?
Thank you very much. And good morning to your viewers all over West African countries and of course Ghanaians as well. My brother, the point is that from day one, if you look at the address you just made before the opening remarks, you know that where I sit, there's no way I will compromise with government to go ahead to sign this deal, because as Sylvester just enumerated, you realize that at the end of the day, our men and women who are doing business in this country are going to go off, let me use the word bankrupt, because why? Someone will bring his goods to your country free. He won't pay duty. Ghana government says they want money, and therefore every day we increases taxes to get the revenue that we are looking for. Where I sit as Importers and Exporters Association, we say, okay, we import, reduce the taxes for us, and so that more of us will go and bring the goods that the European people want to bring it here. What are they seeing? They're seeing that Ghanaians are consuming so much. And therefore, at the end of the day, if they succeeded for us to sign the deal with them, then they will, our market will be saturated
with the European goods.
With the European goods. Now, some of the goods, it's like they have also, I'm seeing from where I say, like, they have already made a market research, and they realize that if we bring this type of goods to the country, they'll consume more. Therefore, we make a lot of money from these people. Therefore, let's give them this condition to go through. When they sign the deal, then the Ghanaian who used to import those goods, you can no longer do what? Bring it there. Because they will not determine what you can import and what you cannot import, because they have that contract with your country, signed by your government on behalf of the people of Ghana. Now, looking at what Sylvester Guest made, it tells you that why should we, when the president went, I think there was one meeting, president went and said, we need to add value to our raw materials. So at one breath, you spoke about let's add value. He made specifically, president mentioned cocoa beans and whatever that
gold
we on sending raw material. And it was even talking of how we can set up the gold factory
refineries.
Here, the refinery here. Thank you. Now today, if you should go ahead to sign the EPA, that doesn't mean those vision of the president is going to be killed and dead. You understand? So this is the hypocrisy that we are talking about. At one breath, president says, "Oh, let's dress Ghanaian dress." Like my brother is rightly dressed here. That's what I used to dress, but today I'm guilty.
We are all guilty.
Yeah. So I must confess my own thing. I normally smoke every day. From
you should have worn the smoke.
I would have looked very beautiful. I didn't know that I was going to meet people who would be guilty like this. The point is that, but that notwithstanding, I bought it. Although the one who bring these goods to the country need money, I also have the desire to wear, and that is why he import these goods, and I bought it. Because in the little economics I know, if you want the desire, you must have the power to do what?
To supply that.
Package it.
To buy it.
Yes.
Buy it,
You have the cash. You cannot say, "Oh, I want this flour." If you need the flour, you must have the money to buy. Now the point is that if the EPA are interested on our raw materials, now they take our raw materials there, they produce, they bring them back to you and I, and we consume, and they make a lot of dollar, and we make small margins. from it. You understand? 3, the clearing agents at the ports or at the point of entry, they call them freight forwarders. Okay. Now, if someone is not going to bring his goods free because you have 70% market access to your country, you can bring about 100 vessels or 200 vessels in a month with their goods. It doesn't need you to do any paperwork because it is there. You understand that? So that sector is also going to go out of unemployment. Importers who import will be, I'm talking of importers who already import into this country will also go out of unemployment because the people are now going to be involved to spoil your market because he brings his goods free of charge. And therefore, if you bring his goods free of charge, he's not paying duty. So why should you say because of that he's going to pass on to the consumer?
The consumer.
So commodity is going to be cheap in the market, and therefore it tells you that at the end of the day you now become an employee. I don't want to be an employee all the time. I also want to create jobs. I want to be. Look, that's why we are trained. In our university, especially our engineers, they only know how to repair, but they don't know how to invent. But even though those few who try to do their own to manufacture, we don't patronize it. Now, these are some of the things that we are looking at. At the end of the day, they will not bring everything that they can bring it here. The latest chairs that we are talking of, they will bring it. Automobile. But indeed, I always ask this question: do we have European businessmen and women doing business in this country or not? Those companies mining our golds and other things go to a free zone site in Tema. I don't know if you know that very well. Go and see the big huge companies that they process and export. Is it not owned by European countries?
It is.
Are they not enjoying tax relief? So what kind of tax relief that do they want our country to sell our birthright to somebody like those people? What provoked me is that now, after goods aspect, it comes to services aspect. They say, your procurement should be open to everybody.
So we can also come and bid.
Now, we are talking about company profile here. Coconut growth profile, director or the proprietor. We say, look, we are competing with Dr. Paco Sindum. Say, oh, look, I have this mansion of hotel. International businessmen and women come up for conferences. I have television. I have Gold Crest. I have that. So it tells you that he's very strategic. So he will do what? He qualified to get any contract in this country, procurement. Now, at the end of the day, will now also come and say, look, I don't only have this. I have that internationally. This country, Botswana, Nigeria.
So you don't have a level playing field, even on that side.
Now you are not going to look. Okay, give me the contract. I have the finance. I'm not that you are not giving me the procurement contract, and I'm going to look for
financing to do it.
Who will go and then look for money elsewhere and come because he's getting procurement in this country. You understand? So these and other things that we think that no, it's not going to be a healthy situation. We are producing graduates day in, day out. At the end of the day, what are they coming to do for us? We should think that let's add more value to our product, our raw materials, so that we have the money coming back to us. We should look if on the EPA agreement, if they had asked that okay, we should add value to our cocoa beans, even our chocolates can also be exported to the US, to the Germany, to Holland, to UK. I will have no problem. But at the end of the day, they are not interested of receiving our finished product. They are interested in receiving our raw materials.
But at the same time, is it not good for those who export if they have access to a bigger market in the European Union where they're going to export with maybe almost tax-free? Is it not better for us?
Let me tell you something.
I just want to pick his short thought on that.
Let me tell you something. Are you know in this country that most at times some of our members who export goods comes back because they say that it does not meet
the standard.
The standard. Is that true? Do you go to the market and see the inferior goods that these people are bringing? We are buying them. When was the last time that a European or an international man is bringing goods to this country that he get to the port and says, no, this one cannot enter our country, go back? You see what will happen? They will call the embassy. They will call the Minister of Trade and Industry. They will call the government officer. They have the link even more than
the local person.
I'm telling you.
It's an interesting comment that is coming up. I don't know your take on this. Because from what Samson is saying, from what Sylvester is saying, it doesn't look like a partnership agreement. It doesn't look to me. Because it's more like a big bullying brother coming to dump his goods on you and telling you, like, if you don't take what I'm bringing to you, then forget it. You can't even have access to my market. Or if you're going to do that, you're going to pay more for that. It doesn't seem to me like a fair partnership that we are entering. And yet our government are pushing to get it signed.
I think if you are parties to an agreement, then you also need to play your role as a partner. You should match up. Okay, you shouldn't assume that position that, okay, it's someone who's brought it, and so the person should lead the way. And I think that's what is happening in our case. You have refused as a country and as a sub-region to see this whole agreement as something that is major. And so if we don't like it, then we work against it effectively. If we think that is the way, then we plan and work along it. Because we've had this talk about EPAs for a very long time. I mean, when we had the Cotonou Agreement, when it came in, it was launched in 2000, then they started talking about the fact that progressively we'll go into a free trade area where we'll open our markets. So we knew as far back as, even before the 2000, we knew that progressively we're going to get to that point. If as a country or as a sub-region, we thought that we're not ready for it, then from that point, we should have started working against that. If we realize that, well, that is the only option out, then again, we should have started building our capacity. But somehow, it's as if the whole EPA thing, it's an EU thing. So when it comes up, then we react and then we go back. For instance, I mean, while civil society has done a lot of studies to look at the cost implications of this, our government hasn't done that for all these years, and we've been attending all meetings. I wonder what. Now, I want to put all of this in a context. Now, we've had an agreement that determines how we trade with Europe over the years. It goes as far back as 1963, when we had what we call the Yaoundé Convention, which was more of a Europe and Francophone agreement, because we're not, the British colonies were not involved at that point. So we had the first convention, Yaoundé, there's a second one to it, and then it moved on to the Lomé Convention. We had four phases of that, and then we came to the Cotonou. Now, increasingly, if you look at those agreements, at the initial point, there was so much preferential treatment given to the African countries that we're allowed to put duties on goods coming from
the European
the European market, whilst we were given significant access to their market. Okay, but whilst that was going on, it was clear that a point that will not continue to take place, because at the bigger level, which is the WTO, and even before the WTO, when there was the GATT, there was a rule to the effect that such preferential treatment should be removed. Okay, so that increasingly we should get to a situation where everybody should be treated equally.
On the same platform.
Yes. Of course, there are exceptions to certain countries based on their level of development. Okay, so that thing was in there. And even as far back as those previous agreements, they could only operate because we had to go and get a waiver from the World Trade Organization that, okay, because of the particular circumstances of these countries that we are dealing with, let's still continue to give them the preferential treatment with the plan that we'll get it off after a point. So my issue is that if all along we've had this, we've known all along that they will get to a point that we would have to take off that preferential treatment, what then did we do? Did we say that, okay, look, we probably should have done and said that, okay, if we do our projections after 20 years, we still will not be able to compete. And so we'll have to start dealing, if we have to be talking to the WTO to make sure that whatever waiver it is that the claim cannot be extended should be extended, because, look, that weakness still persists.
Yeah.
You know, if that's what we should be doing, then we should be fighting that cause forcefully as a group, as ACP, for instance. If we think that, well, we can't, then we should be building our capacity. But for all these years, we've done virtually nothing. I mean, it's as if even it's more of an agreement between the EU and civil society, because you see the civil society doing more work.
Yeah, it seems they're the ones pushing
than the government itself.
To do a lot more.
So my issue is that if as a country we've done our analysis and we think it's not going to be beneficial, then what are we doing? Are we going to push the agenda that, okay, we shouldn't, they should extend the waiver? Because even at the WTO levels, there are a lot of disagreements there. So I still think there's opportunity for us to push that an agenda to get an extension or give or continue to enjoy the preferential treatment, and because there are other trade agreements signed with other countries. That's what we call the generalized system of preferences plus, which gives some preferential treatment. All of those things exist. So yes, so we have all of that. Sadly, we don't see a lot of discussion. We don't see a lot of things coming from the government side. A lot of the information and a lot of the discussions and the suggestions tend to be coming from the side of the civil society, and that's what worries me.
We're talking about the exporters, and you wanted to make a comment, because I was wondering, just recently, listening to the banana exporters, for example, they are all for the signing of this agreement. Is it because it serves their interests? But if you look at how we do our exports in particular, would this not be beneficial to our exports?
Before I come to the exporters, I just want to add one point what Fred just said. You know, from the ACP, what they call the African Caribbean level, when we started the negotiations, I think the African Union, they did a lot. The REX, the Regional Economic Grouping, they also did a lot. But what actually caused the deadlock was that things that are not necessary for a free trade agreement, that is WTO compatible, the EU brought them all of a sudden
into the agreement.
So just I mentioned, the EU all of a sudden said they should include export tax. You don't need that. If you read Article 24 of the WTO for a free trade agreement, you know, you don't need export tax. You don't need the most favored nation clause. You don't need all the contentious issues. The African Union actually, they have a paper that outline all the contentious issues that they are not necessary for a free trade agreement. And the EU, just they are not listening to the ACP, and so they've like taken a higher moral ground, and they are blaming the ACP for the deadlock. And so if you are negotiating with a partner,
apart from Nigeria, almost everybody seems to be happy to go along.
You see, not everyone across the whole Africa, Caribbean, Pacific. There's a whole fight across the continent. For instance, even the trade ministers, when they met in February, in February in Dakar,
2 months ago,
they actually disagreed with what was on the table, and that's why they said they should come and hold national consultation. National consultation. And so Mali said no, we cannot. Togo, Nigeria, so they came back, and then Nigeria held their own national consultation, and they rejected the EPA at that level, at the level of the national consultation. The Gambia also they did their national consultation, and also rejected the EPA before they went to Cote d'Ivoire for the heads of states. You know, that's why they rejected the EPA at that level.
But even at that level, had it not been for Nigeria, it seems to me we would have gone ahead to sign.
So that's a process issue that Efra was talking about. See, as a country, this is a very important international treaty. It's not only just a treaty; it's an international treaty.
Yeah.
Okay, so once it's signed, ratified, you know, you have to take it to Parliament for ratification. Once it's an international treaty,
you have to follow
and it governs every aspect of your life. Every aspect of your life. And so, for such a serious international treaty that threatens the life of your indigents, the government, they need to serve us better. So he's right by saying that all of a sudden, the kind of information that you need, the kind of consultation you need. In Nigeria, they did well. They brought all the exporters, all the exporters and all the key stakeholders and said, look, I think we are better as a country not to sign this agreement. And so that's what I did. Now I'm on the exporters. See, the exporters have a genuine concern, because if you don't sign the agreement, as I mentioned, there are 3 products that will face tariff escalations, what they call marginal increment tariffs. So they are the tuna products, about 18%. That's a bit a lot. Then you have the fruits and vegetables at 2 to 6%. That's a bit low. Banana now 4%. You know, cocoa paste. Cocoa paste.
Cocoa paste.
Now, the UN Economic Commission for Africa has actually done a good job by actually looking at all the countries within Africa, the kind of additional duties they will pay under what are called a standard GSP. The standard GSP is the worst form of the preferences. That is the GSP. And for Ghana, I said, look, or if you add all the additional duty, okay, using the export for the next for the past 5 years, you know, you try to extrapolate. to see the average kind of it will come to about $52 million. Okay, so they're saying that look, and then you also if you sign, then you're going to lose tariff revenue about $378 million that you need for your budget support and all the road infrastructure we need. So the UN is saying that look, the best thing we can do is just to absorb the additional duties that the exporters will face, and they'll continue to export as if. Nothing has happened. You get a point. Yeah. And so that we don't sacrifice the light manufacturing sector, whose market is the region and domestic, is the regional market. And so, in terms of raw materials, the European market, but in terms of manufactured product, it's a regional market. And so, for any industrial development, you need to put it there. So, to avoid these disastrous clauses in the agreement, compensate the exporters, and so that this is a genuine concern. Yeah. Compensate them, and so that you save your country. For these kind of disaster clauses.
Okay, so as for Sylvester, I think that we are capable of compensating the exporters, so that at least we can help. We can make some more revenue, can save some more for the development of the country. We'll take a short break. We'll come back, continue our discussions on the EPA, and do some more detailed analysis on some of the aspects that has been raised. Stay tuned in. So you're welcome back. We have been talking about the EPA and the various disagreements, not even disagreements, but there are various aspects of this that is not even coming up more. And as some of my guests have said, we need to see a lot more leadership from our government, because that is what they are the ones leading it. For us to see what the numbers, the true numbers are. What are we losing if we don't sign? What are we gaining if we don't sign? We need to see those things. So we're talking about the government compensating exporters, so that, look, forget about the EPA. Let's go ahead. We'll export. We'll pay up whatever any additional cost. Do you think that we are going to make enough savings if we don't sign the EPA, so that we can compensate these exporters?
Yes, just I indicated earlier on, if you look at the additional duties that you pay is about $52 million.
Dollars.
Yes, dollars. The tariff revenue you will lose about 378, according to UN. I mean, the UN did a study.
And that's quite significant.
Yes, and that was actually updated by the South Center in Geneva. Now, so if you look at 378 million
against 52 million,
52, I mean,
it's virtually nothing.
That's simple arithmetic. You are better off by absorbing that and asking the company to diversify the export destinations, say within the next 3 years. And in Namibia, they have the same challenge of the beef exports.
Yeah.
Because the market, 80% of the market
goes to Europe.
And so I said, look, we cannot sacrifice our national development just because of the beef sector alone. Other players are also important, and so there's a need to have a solution that satisfies all the
everybody.
stakeholders. And so that's what they're doing. So that's one aspect of it. And so it is important, just to mention, as a country, we take leadership and make sure that we save the country from that. If the other aspect that figures, in terms of figures, the other aspect, if you look at the other aspect of the EPA, there's what I call the PAPED, the Development Corporation. So the ECOWAS, they were demanding about 15 billion euros for the trade adjustment cost. If we sign this, we have a number.
Implications on us.
Implications.
Yeah.
So what ECOWAS did was to cost all that, and 15 billion euros. The EU is saying that they cannot provide 15 billion euros. They can only give you 6.5 billion euros for the next 5 years for the 16 member countries. Mauritania is part of, for this EPA, joining ECOWAS.
EPA,
Yes,
yeah.
so 16. So if you divide the 6.5 billion euros over the 16 member countries, by the 5 years, it comes to about some 82 million euros. 82 million euros because of aid. Because you hear people saying that if you don't sign, the EU is not going to give us aid. So because of 82 million euros, you forego your trade taxes. Just as I mentioned, the situation of Ghana.
It's almost 370
The
million.
grant is coming down. I mean, if you look at the grant, total grant coming down, but the trade taxes are going up. And so for a developing economy like ours, the best thing is to make sure that what you have and you control it. You don't give away what you have and you control in promise for aid, which is less than what you're going to do. I mean, it doesn't make any rational economic sense in that regard.
The difficult, yeah.
I still want to come back to whether government itself has been thinking through all of this very well. Because again, in our budgets, we've been talking about rationalizing duties on poultry, on rice to grow the local production, which suggests that you're looking at increasing taxes, import duties on some of those products. So whilst we're making these promises, is it that we've forgotten about the agreement we're trying to sign with the EPA? It doesn't add up. Again, very recently, the president has said that they should review the procurement law such that we can use it to promote local companies by giving them some,
advantages over
others. So while we're making this promise, were we still thinking about the EPA, or it's difficult
because in the EPA you're supposed to give a level playing field to everybody.
So you're not be able to have that favoritism.
More like you can't say these are local people, so I give them an advantage over the others.
So it's difficult for you to understand, and that's why I'm saying that whilst the EU sees this as a major tool, it's a major tool because you could see that if you look at the agreement, the areas that they are pushing are areas that will support them in their growth agenda. And look, I mean, you can't discount the level of penetration of Asia, particularly China, to the African market, and how difficult it is for you to fight China. Now, if they are going to have access to a market duty-free, then it helps them to fight China better. So you can say that Europe has an agenda, and that's what we are pushing. What is our agenda for which we should sign or not to sign? We don't see anything. And to me, that is the greatest worry.
And interestingly, I was talking to Sylvester before we started the program, and my greatest worry has been that, like you were saying earlier, we knew that a time will come where these EPAs will come up. We didn't do much in terms of even negotiating, to the point that we are now, October is supposed to be the deadline, and we are still haggling about whether to sign or not to sign. But at the same time, between, even if you're looking at the interim agreement, between 2007 and now, I haven't seen much in terms of opening up our borders to each other, in terms of trade, intra-trade among ourselves. Like I was talking to you about, among ourselves, among the African countries, we do up to 10% trade among ourselves. You're talking about 70% in the EU area. You're talking about almost 75% in the Asian zone, almost 50% in the Americas. We haven't done much. So I come back to the point that if we don't sign this agreement, it's not going to disadvantage us, especially when we haven't done much. for ourselves. It's not going to disadvantage us.
I
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think it's going to affect us. Look, let me tell you something. As we've just rightly made mention of we not even feeding, getting access to our own market. So you ask yourself, what is the African Union stand for?
Mm-hmm.
What does the ECOWAS stand for? At that level, why can the finance ministers or the trade ministers would come together and say, look, if we have in the interior minister, if we have to open our borders, let us spell it clearly with clear plain English that we've opened our borders for African trade. So that Ghana goods can go there easily, their goods can come here easily. You know what normally causes the problem? Our Minister of Trade, if I'm not right, I'm sure that they might be monitoring the state. You know, rice used to come through
Cote d'Ivoire.
Cote d'Ivoire.
A minister says, no way.
Oh, I think that was about last year or thereabout.
Now, importers who were bringing rice from there think that they were getting it cheaper in terms of price, okay, and in terms of quality wise, okay. Now, if a minister says no, so meaning to the detriment of their people, because they were getting taxes, because before our people import it from there to our country, at least you have to pay some process must go through. Now, if you say no, how do they allow you to also bring in your goods? And that is what is happening at the cashew sector. Right now, as we speak, the cashew exporters has a problem. Why? Ghana produces less tonnage. Cote d'Ivoire produces, I think, about 400 and something thousand metric tons. So, but the people who export, even including the foreigners, the Indian who come to India, they consume cashew a lot.
Yeah.
What they say is that the people say they will never allow their people to cross border with the cashew. If you want to export cashew, come to their country. The process that exporters get through our country here to go out is much more easier, even including the foreign, they like to export through Ghana. So now, but if you know that we are also getting something from them, why do you come with this impunitive directive
measures
that will also frustrate your people one way or the other? Now, we are also talking of the local content, my brother. This liberalization of the procurement, something that they are talking of with the EPA, the local content that Parliament, I think the last time Parliament passed it.
content bill, yeah.
Bill.
Yeah.
Now, ask yourself, even the oil, apart from Anadaco that I know, is it Anadaco, who's a Ghanaian
entity.
The drilling companies all are foreign companies. The servicing company, I don't see any Ghanaian getting big contract to Tulo or to Cosmos or to any and others that we are supplying them this and that. It is the same, their own people that have come here because they use what I'm talking of, company profile to say, we've been supplying this, we've been doing this to this oil company,
the capability.
so we have the capacity. We have the technical expertise. How do we develop? Expertise developed with time. You saw the gentleman sitting here, Sylvester, making good submissions. Doesn't mean I just wake up one day and you have this knowledge. You study with time. So if your hand is on the job, at least you might not be perfect from day one, but as time goes on, you improve your level of studies. Now, we are saying that on this EPA Hulu Badu that we are talking about, did you see any government officials, directly or indirectly, involved in this negotiation, agreeing to come and sit on a side like this, with expertise like Third Network, Dr. Graham and his people, to sit and let's debate it, so that by using the national television, they don't even want to use the private owned entity, let's use the state owned TV which is everywhere, for the people to come and debate it, either with the Ghanaian local language for the people to understand. Look, education is very, very important. Our people do not even understand. All what they say EPA. Ask them what is EPA. So it takes those that we pay them with our taxpayers' money. They're supposed to come and explain. So we those who are also saying we stand against it now. Then we all sit on one platform and we explain.
You're looking for a common ground, so that
why
at least once we judge or we can come to some conclusion.
Government have made a decision to sign. Why was it that if they say go back, they refer the thing was deferred at Yomosho Group, am I right? That go back and then about 4 countries were put up, they said they put up a technical committee to look at the issue, and in 2 months' time we come back again to advise President, the head of state, as well as to sign or they should sign. And when we wanted to do a consultation forum, we took only 1 day, and even in that 1 day, we sneak in the European Union rep says to come and address the people, and when we say no, they say we heckle him. What do you mean? We say we want to go to our home and consult with our people.
Our
first.
people and
There
get
was
our
no
own.
need for the Minister of Trade Industry or government or Minister of Foreign Affairs bringing this gentleman to the meeting.
Do you agree?
Because if we were speaking Twi, or if they were speaking Kusa, which is my language,
Yeah.
or if they were speaking Efe,
He wouldn't understand what they're
who
talking
will
about.
translate? For who to pay that person who's translating to the man? There was no need. I disagree with him totally. That it brings us the disrespect as the people of the country. That we say we want to go and decide from our own home first. And that's why I respect His Excellency the late president. We say, do you fear some? Yeah, but do you fear some? They will bring this white man there to come and sit and say he was going to address us. Address us on what?
Is it not a difficulty that we've been facing? That it
This is a
seems our
betrayal.
governments or our government has already made up its mind. And so whatever we talk about, they may not listen.
You see, you need to look at the legitimacy of the stand of government.
Okay.
Yes, as something I was talking about. The national consultation was meant for Ghanaian stakeholders.
Yes.
Nigeria held their own consultation. You know, they commissioned a consultant. They took their time and looked at all the variables, rural employment, all that, urban employment, all that.
Yeah.
And so they came and they had a workshop. It was a 2-day workshop. And they looked at everything and said, look, there's not an agreement that we can sign into. That's why they went to Cote d'Ivoire
And said no, they won't.
and said no. You know, so that is a proper consultation. For this one, though I mean, it was a very ad hoc consultation. To make matters worse, all of a sudden the EU, when they were not able to speak,
And yet
all of a
they came
sudden
in.
the minister was handling. All of a sudden he was following the minister. I want to. Claude Martin wants to clarify certain things, certain factual inaccuracies. I mean, for God's sake.
And
Let me
check this thing. Do you know what, my brother? This Sidney Hayford, what is that his name?
Sydney.
Sydney was supporting us when we still would not do. On that day, Sydney was there as a moderator. For what?
Sydney is a Ghanaian.
Who was supporting us that we should not agree? He was in support with 10 minutes.
But
No,
still
no.
in school, yeah, he still is. No, his concern is that he's publicly known to be.
He spoke against.
Yeah.
Someone who stood against it. The EPA.
Against the EPA.
Yes. Now on that day, he was the moderator.
No. If is the moderator only
Yes.
to be more like between those who are agreeing and those who disagree.
So he is the technical
But
brain.
he
Now,
doesn't take a position per se as a moderator. He tries to bring the ideas together.
Well, we can move away from the.
Yeah,
from
the
I just wanted to know
But the
that
point I wanted to make was that it was just completely wrong
for us to have
our
brought-
negotiating party to come explain things to us. So when we find the consultation, then we'll go back and negotiate with the EU. I mean, it doesn't
wash.
Doesn't augur well for the country.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make, the AGI spoke against the EPA. The Lesia,
The Christian
is-
Council
Christian
has also
Council,
done that.
The farmer-based organizations,
Yes.
the NGOs,
Yes.
other stakeholders together. So if, as a government, you are taking a decision, and all these important stakeholders are saying, look, I think we are stepping onto the unknown. Some are saying onto the unknown. Some are saying that we are actually signing our death
Our
warrant.
death
You-
warrants.
You get a point. And so it's important for government to sit back and look at and bring technical experts and so that they advise on this agreement. And I said you don't need to go far. From the UN Commission for Africa, from the African Union, and all the studies done on EPA, on Africa, all the revenue negative, GDP negative, employment so what exactly that convinces you to go and just like a friend was talking about, it is about our vision. The EU has a vision for the future. Where do we want to go as a country? As a country, do you have any development plan? Do you have a vision for
Every
the
4
country?
years.
I'm not sure.
We'll have a
And
new
so,
agenda.
if you don't have a vision, you end up accepting the trade agreement on the terms of the EU and not on our terms.
Because you look at it in
You
the
get
short
that?
term instead of looking at it in the
And
long
that is
term.
what they did in Dakar. I mean, Dakar in January, when they just accepted the agreement on the terms of the EU, because these were the same things that the ECOWAS Commission stood against when Ibn Chambers was and then Philippe Beho took over.
Yeah.
Once those leadership, moved away, there's a new leadership. They brought this man from Burkina Faso, and then the commissioner for trade is from Niger. And then so there was some kind of alliance and all that. And all of a sudden they just agreed to well, even if you ask the trade commissioner, he said he's under pressure. He's under pressure to sign EPA.
Under
what
pressure from who?
And I
From the
think,
government.
no, I think that is where I think that's the challenge that the governments are confronted with, because now beyond the issue of trade, there are a lot of interactions between Europe and Africa, and so they have other ways of compelling you to do what they want you to do, and I'm sure that's where their concerns are.
And that's
I mean,
what
they can
the
slow
budget
down
support, for example.
budget
That's
support,
where
they
I
can
was
slow
asking
down,
you when
they
we're
can
talking
slow down
earlier.
budget support.
Yeah.
They can slow down disbursement of facilities. I mean, it is Europe, but they have so much stake at the World Bank and all of that. So I'm sure again that those are the concerns. But and that is the more reason why we should have our game
own game plan.
Because I'm saying this, look, we might still open up the markets and say that you can export to Europe, but they have their phytosanitary regulations and tell you that I'm sorry,
Zimbabwe
you
is not enjoying, eh? Zimbabwe, they are dying.
they'll say I'm sorry. I mean, you can't bring this product in because maybe the level of acidity or even in the soil,
Yeah.
I
you know,
read
it's
that.
too high.
It's too high.
So you can't bring that fruit. So we should go with our game plan. And if you don't have a game plan, then we are in serious trouble. But I think where we are now, this EPA thing it's been going on for a while. At least it was supposed to take effect in 2008. We were able to at least push it, and we were compelled to initial So I think we can still, ECOWAS should still
You can play games with
play
it.
games. I mean, you have to use that word. And really, if your citizen says they don't want it,
You don't impose it on them.
I think that's a strong enough card they can push, because if it's the other way around and the citizens of Europe says we don't want it, the government would not go for it.
What can we practically do as a people? What practically? I'm asking this because if you listen to some of the discussions and comments, for example, from the trade minister, his point, for example, is that yes, there will be consequences on the economy if we don't sign, but if you go ahead to say, and that if you are not careful, it might even lead to the dying of your mother, in terms that the consequences are that dire if you don't sign the agreement. He thinks that we should rather go ahead, though there may be consequences, we should be able to cover them. So I'm asking, if that is what we are getting, the information, because it didn't start with Harry Idrisu. I remember Hannah
This
Tete
back.
also bringing the, I'm even talking about recent times,
Yes.
bringing the same thing up. So the question then is, what can we do as a people to force our government to sign this when it seems that, look, no matter what we do, they're going to have to sign? What can we practically do?
Let me come in there because of is my area. because my people are hungry. What we can do as people of the country is that those who are going to sign, they are going to sign on behalf of the people of Ghana. So at the end of the day, it binds us all. Now, if the people of Ghana say they don't want to go for this, I think the best thing government could do is to reorganize the education forum, even if they have to do it all over 10 regions. Extensive consultation, explain to the people to the language that they understand. They understand you and get their feet. That's what they give us 2 months. If 1 month alone, we can go 10 regions. We do that. Let the people come, ask all their ignorant or correct questions. There's not even ignorant contribution, because I'm asking questions to know. Then you educate them, you sample all their views, come and say, oh, this is what the people say. But if you come to only international conference center, even there's somebody in Accra here, when there's a meeting going on there, it is for free. They say, go there. You say, oh, there are police there. Oh, there are soldiers. They say the president said there are soldiers there. Meanwhile, what they are going there to do is to the interest of you, the ordinary Ghanaian. So it means that we should not limit the thing to only Accra here.
So you are thinking that we should, education or consultation should be better
Broader
than
consultation.
it has been.
Of course, explain to the people,
To the people.
language that they understand.
Okay.
If you go to Western region, what is the language they understood? If you go to
Ashanti,
Central region, what
Central.
is the language they understood?
Okay.
So that the people now give you, their full support. Because at the end of the day, as it said, it's going to be international treaty. And if
It
it's
binds everybody.
It's going to bind everybody. No one will come back and say, oh, if I had known, but then it has gone. We have already sold out our birthright. So these are some of the things that we
That we
think
can do.
should come They shouldn't take that decision, bold decision they are going to, whether the people say or not they are going to sign. It has an implication on them. This is a political something. If you go and sign it, the people say, okay, you disrespect us and vote against you. What happened? But we don't pray for that.
So
We are not I don't wish them bad, but I want them to understand
that we should
Just
there
listen to
should
the people.
broader consultation.
Absolutely, and see the way forward.
Sylvester, what do you think we can practically do?
They should deal with the concerns of the exporters are genuine. You need to deal with the concerns of the exporters.
Okay.
I mean, there are people they've employed and all that. There are genuine concerns, and they are, I mean, as I indicated, just compensate the exporters for the next 3 years, and maybe ask them to diversify. Help the exporters,
Help
just
them.
as all governments do to diversify the export destinations. That's a way out. So it's an immediate solution because the European Union, said, let us put a deadline and force countries to agree to our agenda. That is why the
October deadline.
Yes, the deadline.
is there.
Because they look at all he mentioned the GSP plus. They actually close all alternatives
Options,
that they
yeah.
could actually offer to ACP countries. They all the alternatives. And so they close all the alternatives and they set a deadline. So what do? So you force to sign on.
But even my worries-
your options are narrow.
Yes, so your best strategy out is to have an alternative that the EU has no control, and that's by compensating your exporters, and that's the diversity exporters. That's the best way out. And then, as he mentioned, then you do more national consultation. You mentioned about intra-Africa trade. Let us look at the intra-Africa trade. In fact, UNCTAD, if you look at their report for 2009, it's talking about the rate of growth of manufactured products in Africa is going faster than the rate of growth of the export of raw materials. And so these are the kind of things we need to do to deal with the huge youth unemployment. In fact, when I look at the statistics, it's scary.
Do you have the statistics?
Yes, we have. Well, someone will say
Because
yes, I mean, we have.
I don't think the government is even aware of the unemployment rate in the country.
We have, whether you are in Zambia, you are in Kenya, we are in Namibia, or other in Senegal, you find huge
unemployment. Yeah,
I mean,
But
that is
unemployment youth graduates.
so that is scary from a development point of view.
That's true.
Because
That's
you're
true.
actually heading towards
Disaster.
disaster.
That's
And so
true.
there are a lot of political and social problems that we need to deal with. And if we don't change our development paradigm and continue to export our raw materials, we'll see. For instance, if you look at in the 1960s, you could actually exchange maybe 1 ton of cocoa for a car. Today, you need more than 40 tons, before you can get one car. So the terms of trade, if you continue, the terms of trade is worsening for us.
That's
and
true.
you cannot continue like this
That's true.
as a continent, as a country. I mean,
It
that
won't work. It won't work. Your take on that?
Yes, I mean, I think we should ask for time to do proper work to know the real cost and benefits of going into this agreement. I mean, we are told that there's a 5-year moratorium when we sign. But look, as I said, we've had from 63 up to now to build our capacity. We couldn't. So that 5-year really, I don't think
do
there much behind. So, but we should do our homework. Let us quickly commission people to do a proper study and let us know the cost implications before we move. And I think if we can make a very strong case, the EU will agree to an extension of the deadline again. We should know what we are going in for. And also then, subsequently, when we are making policy statements, then it should be in tandem with whatever we are going. If you are going for the EPA, then our policy statement should reflect that. If you are not, but we shouldn't have this disconnect. Otherwise, it doesn't.
No, it's
have
true
us.
because, like you were saying, and you're also pointing out, if you have a government saying that empower the local people,
Let's add value to our
let add value,
Now
and at the same time you are saying we should open up the market for
Yes.
equal opportunities, then there is a serious challenge.
There's a point. You see, the European Parliament, you see, normally we try to disaggregate some of the stakeholders in Europe. A lot of stakeholders in Europe disagree with the European Commission. So the European Parliament, there's a development committee. The development committee disagree. They voted against the EPA. They said these are developing countries, and you cannot ask them to take away their taxes that they use for development. And so there are a number of actors in Europe that are very much against the EPA. But of course, we have the European Commission has actually reduced the EPA to a corporate agenda, markets and raw materials. So that's a problem. So people disagree with it in Europe, and they're fighting against the Commission on that. So that's another point. Just not to paint that the whole Europe is behind the the EPAs, no?
The
There are-
EPA.
there are people who disagree with them.
Let's take a short break so that when we come back. Yes. So we'll take a short break. We'll come back to wrap up our discussions on the EPA. But it's been a very interesting discussion, you know. So stay tuned in, and we'll conclude our discussions right after the break.
The tourism industry in Ghana is reported to be the fourth highest foreign exchange earner on our GDP list. We will find out what the impact, the identification, development and promotion of tourist sites in the local vicinities where they are located. We also want to talk to the various chiefs and opinion leaders in these communities to assess whether tourism is making a positive or negative impact on the lives of the local people. This is Tourism TV, fact-finding program that seeks to investigate the existing and potential tourist sites. Join me, Ralph Aike, this and every Friday on this wonderful expedition to find out what tourism is all about in Ghana.
So welcome back. It's been quite a very interesting discussion we're having on the EPA. It seems all consensus are that the government shouldn't push itself to sign now. If anything, there should be more further consultations so that we'll get a much more broader, a better representation of what the aspirations of our people are. And I've been talking to Samson, I've been talking to Sylvester, and I've been talking to Fred as well. Our WhatsApp number is 050-6290-721. 050-6290-721. So for those of you who want to contribute, ask some questions, you can do that. Now, I just wanted us to finally look at whether we should sign or not, and if we should, what timeline should we give ourselves? What would you say? Let me start with you, Sylvester.
I think you have to, before you sign any agreement, you need to have a vision. You need to have a vision for your country, your country and the region, and see how it fits into that vision. For now, I'm not sure where we are going as a country.
As a country.
Okay, I'm not sure. But at the continental level, there's a vision of, trying to boost intra-Africa trade and continental free trade area. And so for the African Union, they're saying that, look, the EPAs, the best they can do is to stall our integration agenda. And so in that case, EPAs should not be the thing that we should be talking about. And so from that point of view, our vision is to integrate. We need to work on our productive sector. We need to look at our internal challenges and move as a country and as a continent, as a region. EPAs is not the best option for us now.
But if any other country signs in the sub-region, what effect does it have on us?
You see, the problem is, if you take ECOWAS, we have what they call the least developed countries and the developing countries.
Yeah.
So Nigeria is a developing country, Ghana, Ivory Coast, and then recently Cape Verde. Cape Verde graduated from the LDCs, so they use what they call the GSP Plus.
Yeah.
That's what Europe.
Yeah.
Now, the rest are what they call least developed countries. So they export to EU and what they call everything but arms. So, generally speaking, they don't need an EPA. They don't need an EPA before they can export to EU. So if you sign the EPA, you are just signing for cost. You don't need it. The countries that we have, Ghana, Nigeria, and
Ivory Coast.
Ivory Coast. These are the countries that have the challenges. And even the last trade, what they call the Ministerial Monetary Committee meeting on the EPA, they met in Ghana in 2011, and they said, look, let us set up what they call a solidarity fund, or what they call a regional integration fund, that can compensate Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire for the trade adjustment cost.
That
was a very brilliant idea from the trade ministers, but of course, it was never implemented. But if Ghana signs and Nigeria doesn't sign, Nigeria is going to close its borders to. They've done it before, and they'll do it. No, they'll do it again. And so, instead of integrating, will be disintegrating. And so for a country, I heard the trade minister saying that we should be watching the body language of Cote d'Ivoire and not Nigeria. That is a suicidal statement. You need to watch Nigeria because the regional player, the huge market for us, huge market for us. So that is the kind of market that we should be looking at, and you know, try to so Nigeria is very important, and we need to make sure we move as a region. And so if you disagree with your heavyweight in the region and go and go ahead to do anything at all, I mean, Nigeria will just close borders, and then that will be the end of our integration, and that's bad for us as a region.
Seems we are getting WhatsApp messages and people don't seem to agree that we should sign it. Well, it's up to the government to ensure that we listen to what Ghanaians are saying. I think the EPA won't help our local industry. We should not sign it. Your take?
Yes, let us go as a country. Yes, we are working together as an ECOWAS, but we shouldn't hide so much behind the ECOWAS. Let us do our own homework. Let us know the costs and benefits of signing or not signing before we move. If we don't have such a document, we can't take a decision when we don't have any facts. Nigeria has done their work and they are taking a decision. And again, Nigeria, because of their oil, which has access. So in fact, it's a well sought after commodity. So again, they are also cushioned. They can really call the bluff of the EU and not sign the EPA.
Yeah.
But in Ghana's case, we are being challenged. And that is why we need to do this work, to do a proper analysis of the cost and benefits of signing or not signing before we take a decision. So I'll still say that, and between now and October, I think it's too short a time. Let's make a representation and through ECOWAS or whichever body, and have an extension of the deadline, so we can do a proper work. Otherwise, again, we'll be in trouble. And let us quickly situate all of this within our own national agenda.
And Samson?
What I would say, already they have paid some of us that we are against it, or we are citing Ghanaians. Or
I guess you don't have a choice.
Yes. So what I want to say is that the point is, if I'm looking for your daughter to marry, and I think until I conclude with your daughter, I cannot come forward to tell you, the father, that I want to marry your daughter, or I want by next 2 months or this day I want to marry your daughter. So I think the AU should have allowed the countries that they are lobbying to sign this to do all our work, satisfied, convince our people, the nationalities, then we then come back to you. But not them giving us 2 months ultimatum. So if we refuse to sign after 2 months, what will they do to us?
What happens?
You understand?
Yeah.
Now, if I have a country, there are 2 countries fighting here, and you want to go to your intelligence to tell how you are going to fight your opponent, then at that meeting, your opponent sneak in. Then he conquer, you finish. That was what happened at the International Trade Center.
Yeah.
So meaning our government is daring to go. Even government put some media house, you see, they say they will never take any pressure from anybody. And they will go ahead to sign it. So if the whole Minister of Trade and Industry says that he will not take any pressure from anybody, and they are going ahead to sign it, that meaning we are just doing nothing. But the point is,
just talking.
Government should listen to the people. Government should be able to come and explain. Maybe the way I'm thinking, it's not how government is supposed to thinking. But indeed, if government is not thinking for the people will not vote for them to be in government. So I think government should do us a better job by, as I said, going through the regions.
Listening to the people.
Not just Accra. It shouldn't be to only the elite. Is it the elite?
Yeah,
it shouldn't be to only the educators.
Yeah.
Look, the farmer.
Yeah.
The cocoa farmer there. The banana producer there. The mango farmer there.
Yeah.
These are the people who are driving the economy. It's not you and I who have pen and paper sitting and speak big English. He doesn't understand that. So they are the people that we are. At the end of the day, they get the result. If you export more banana, the banana farmer will continue to plant more banana trees. Mango farmer will continue to produce high. Cashew will continue to produce high, such that we can feed the international market and they can also come to us. So if at that point it's well settled, and we have the fund, even though as we are speaking now, we don't even have them in huge quantities. You understand that?
Yeah.
The banana and that we are talking about, we don't even have them in huge quantities to even satisfy the European market. So I don't know if you sign the thing today, the European, before 5 years time, they will get more than we will get. And indeed, even the small budget support that they've been giving to us, have they been giving us the money? Government
Well, the government has been asking them to give us the money.
Why is the government have certain statutory payment that they've not been able to pay? It's because our budget support are not forthcoming quickly as it's supposed. So you think we should go again, and then they decide when to give us money and when not to give us money. But this is Assam Seven.
Well, this is as Samson says. It's been an interesting discussion on the EPA, and it seems from all discussions that majority of the people are not in favor of government going to sign this EPA. If anything at all, there should be the need for a proper cost-benefit analysis before any decision is made. Unfortunately, since our government in mind is made up, but we are hoping that at least the small advocacy that we are doing will get them to sit up and listen to what everybody is saying. Because at the end of the day, if we are not careful, our economy will suffer massively. Maybe for the short term, we may have our way, but the long term, will be to the disadvantage of the people and the industries in this country. It's been a wonderful discussion, and I've been talking about the EPA with Asaki A. Sampson, who's the Executive Secretary of the Imported and Exported Association of Ghana, with Sylvester Bagoro, the Programs Officer at Third World Network Africa, and then with Fred Avonyo, our business analyst and our regular guest. It's been a good show, and I'm hoping that you keep sending your WhatsApp messages, and we'll hopefully get you answers to some of the questions that you are sending in. As I said, you can always reach us on 050-6290-721 on WhatsApp. I'll be your host, Benjamin Afre, on Business Africa Live on BTA. Enjoy the rest of our programs, and see you same time tomorrow morning. Have a good day.
The tourism industry in Ghana is reported to be the 4th highest foreign exchange earner on our GDP list. We will find out what the impact, the identification, development and promotion of tourist sites in the local vicinities where they are located. We also want to talk to the various chiefs and opinion leaders in these communities to assess whether tourism is making a positive or negative impact on the lives of the local people. This is Tourism TV, fact-finding program that seeks to investigate the existing and potential tourist sites. Join me, Ralph Aike, this and every Friday on this wonderful expedition to find out what tourism is all about in Ghana.
Do you know that there are more successful people in Ghana today than before? Well, that is the truth, and the secret is in prudent financial planning with the right financial manager. You need to know the right fund manager who spends your money 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 4 weeks in a month, and 12 months in a year. That manager is at Gold Coast Fund Management. At Gold Coast, your money never sleeps. It revolves every second to give you more money for use when you really need it. For the past 21 years, Gold Coast Fund Management has held a strong reputation of spending people's money to beat inflation, depreciation, and treasury bill rates. Put your money to work. Move from savings to investment. Pay your investment tithe into the Gold Fund and Gold Money Market Fund, and be assured that when you are in need, you can turn to them to resolve your financial problems. Gold Coast Fund Management. Investment advice worth its weight in gold.